that made him.
Yes, it's member. Yes,
it's
member Carol who hasn't logged in yet.
Member Carol, I just texted Member Carol. He said he's trying to join now.
Thanks, Ebony.
You're welcome. Member Carol said he's having issues with his team. So he said start without him and he'll join when he gets it situated.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ebony. Well, let's get started then. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the special Monday edition of the MDTA board meeting. It was, we had to move it to a Monday just because it was conflicting with our transition schedule on 3G, and we just were really concerned about having people focused in too many areas at one time, so we wanted to kind of get this on a Monday. My name is Greg Slater. I'm chairman of the MDTA board. I will, due to a scheduling conflict this morning, I'm going to need to excuse myself. After agenda item 2, then acting chair Sean Powell will continue the meeting. But I hereby call the meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. this morning. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the live streaming laws, this meeting is being conducted via video conference and it's being live streamed on the MDTA board webpage. All members will have their video active during the entirety of the meeting. I ask that anyone who is presenting or answering a question, please turn your video on and audio on when speaking. When you're done, please turn it off and put your audio on mute. To minimize background noise during the call, I'm going to ask everyone on the line to please mute your phones except when you're speaking. For those of you watching this meeting being live streamed, we have posted the materials for today's meeting on the MDTA board webpage so that you can follow along. Before we get started, I just want to share some positive news. On Friday, the credit rating agency S&P revised the outlook on all outstanding bonds for most issuers in the transportation infrastructure space, including BWI Marshall Airport and MDTA toll facilities, and moved them to a stable outlook. And so the negative outlook had been in place since March of 2020 and was due to the uncertainty of the pandemic. But as we recover and the indications we got on our own bonds a few weeks ago, and due to the great work of our team, we are in really great shape and much better than we were, 8-9 months ago. So I just have a lot of people to thank on that one. Today we have Delegate Al Carr with us today. He's pre-registered to comment on agenda item number 4, our legislative session. So welcome, Delegate Carr. We will provide the opportunity to comment after the item is being presented. Before we begin today's agenda, I'd like to ask that the board make a motion to what is currently agenda item 3, resolutions after what is currently agenda item 4, to update legislative session I just want to move kind of items 3 and 4. But can I have a motion to update the agenda?
So moved.
Have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I apologize. This is Natalie. Who made the
Sure.
second?
Member Enzer.
Thank you, Member Enzer. Also, Delegate Carr's not yet joined us,
Okay.
Chairman.
Great. So thank you, and the motion carries, and we'll just switch items 3 and 4 so that the delegate can join us. And I just want to thank everyone for being here at this time. We'll begin today's agenda. So the first item on the agenda would be to approve the minutes for the open and closed session meeting for March 25th. I have a motion to approve the minutes.
This is Mario, so moved.
Second?
I'll second. Member Gaines.
Great. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Motion carries and the minutes are approved. Let me now turn it over to Will and Deb and Kelly to give us an update on the 3G, third generation electronic toll collections systems, the transition. We're in our middle of our downtime right now, and then the revenue and the go live update. So let me turn it over to Will to get started.
Yes, well, good morning, Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Will Pines, and I'm Chief Operating Officer for MDTA. As Greg mentioned, this is an exciting time. We are currently in the cutover for the transition to the new 3G tolling system. And so I'm going to walk you through some of the milestones that are ongoing if you want to jump straight to slide 3 of your package. So the cutover to the new system began last Tuesday, and the cutover period is a 9-day period where the system is down. There's no access to the website or the call center or anything at this time as we migrate from the existing system to the new. This is really exciting news in that the new system is planned to go live this Thursday, as we had previously presented and planned at the last board meeting. So this is something that's obviously been a long time coming, and we are super excited and want to highlight the accomplishment at this point. Kind of moving through the milestone schedule a little beyond the go live this Thursday. After go live, there are 30 and 60-day releases, software releases that are planned to address defects and deferred functionality. As you may remember, we talked about the pass rates of the prior software builds, and critical defects were addressed from those builds. But in working in conjunction with MDTA, there are some things that were deferred till after go live that will be addressed in those windows that we talked about at 30 and 60. I'll talk about the system acceptance period a little more in an upcoming slide, but that'll be the next step after those 30 and 60-day builds. And then there is a post-system acceptance testing software release that's planned to bring on new features like the mobile app. So now I want to take you through some of our key focus areas that we're currently still working on as of today. The biggest ongoing activity is the transition cutover itself to the new system, which involves daily coordination between MDTA and the vendors. And Deb is going to speak quite a bit more about the backlog processing and the plan for that in some of her upcoming slides. But obviously, making sure that those transactions are included from this cutover period is also part of that effort. And due to the size of the backlog, we also are working on the additional storage for the transactions that is required. Additionally, as part of any project, it's important to close out the artifacts like reports and documentation. So our team is working on that. And we're also closely working with vendors to identify issues to ensure that the system is meeting the KPIs and that timely maintenance is occurring. We're currently having some issues that we've identified with images that are obtained at night, particularly for dark colored vehicles. And we're working to improve the image quality with our vendor and making sure that the notices of toll due and the citations that we send out are really high quality with good images, even in those dark circumstances. Some other key focus areas, moving on to page number 5. After the 90-day evaluation period of the system acceptance testing that confirms that the systems are operational and meeting the KPIs, this will culminate into the final system acceptance, at which point we would then migrate into some of those post-sat functionality items that I talked about earlier. Additionally, MDTA Finance, IT, and Operations are working together collaboratively to define the roles and responsibilities for administering the contract during the operational phase, including the performance management of the KPIs. I also talked about the post-go-live software releases on the prior slide, but it's an important point to make that TransCore has committed to keep their resources to the project to bring the releases in a timely manner and within 180 days of that go-live date. So on slide 6, what are some of the risks that we're concerned about and thinking about for after go-live? At go-live this Thursday, there are some risks that we will be managing. Coming out of the cutover, we anticipate high call volumes for the first 2 to 3 weeks, and TransCore is staffing appropriately at the call center to mitigate customer impacts from the long anticipated wait times. Also, customers will need to reset their password in the new system to ensure proper security measures are in place for their information. And a self-recovery system has been set up to help customers in working through obtaining that password if they have any challenges. Additionally, our communications department did a great job putting out notices to the public, advertising that they would need to reset their password for the new system. Again, Deb is going to discuss the backlog processing in detail in a minute, but we obviously understand the criticality of quickly restoring normalcy to the system. And so backlog, as it's been a focus over the last several months with the board, that will continue to be a focus after we go live here on Thursday. After go live, TransCore will have a strike team in place to address any functionality or performance issues that may be uncovered as customers are using the system. And as I mentioned, we're working closely with our vendors to improve the image quality on our notices of toll due and citations to ensure that we will have revenue recovery from our video transactions. So with that, I'll pause for a moment before turning it over to Kelly Mundell and see if the board members have any questions on the ongoing transition.
Thank you, Will. Just one question for me. I'll see if there are any questions from members of the board. From a call center operation, Will, I know we've been having some staffing challenges in terms of, with the existing company, with people recognizing the contract is over and moving on and those types of things. What kind of operation do you feel we're going to see with TransCore once we get up and running and kind of full staff to get us through this kind of 2 to 3 week area? Because I think it's going to be, there's going to be some growing pains, but I want to make sure that we have enough to be able to respond to any questions or inquiries from our customers.
Yeah, great question, Greg. So our original call center, the prior vendor's call center, had less than 30 staff members on site to be able to respond to customer inquiries. And at the worst periods, we were getting wait times in excess of an hour and kind of normally above 30 minutes for the average wait time. The new call center baseline service, they were planning for around 100 employees on site, so more than 3 times the amount of the existing. And during this upfront period, I think the last meeting we had with them, they were around 130 employees. So they have a lot of staff on site. Obviously with COVID restrictions and the risk associated with COVID, there are some issues to manage to make sure that all of that staff is there and in place for the actual go live. But TransCore's got a great plan in place to be able to handle the call volumes.
Great. Thanks, Will. Any questions from members of the board before we move on to the next part of the presentation? I think. Jeff? Member Rosen, I think.
Yeah, sorry about that. So for the release, for the software releases, so I understand the 30-day, 60-day, and then the additional functionality beyond that, that sounds like that's already, those are for enhancements that are already planned. What is going to be the plan going forward for for updates beyond that point in time and additional enhancements by the vendor?
So a couple of points. So the 30, 60, and what we'll refer to as post-SAT releases, those do include, if you remember, the past software build releases, we were in excess of 90% pass on each one of our builds. But there were, common to any project, there were some defects that were identified. So MDTA worked with TransCore to triage any defects, and those have been laid out in a time frame to make sure that the fixes are in place. Additionally, there's functionality that the original system today does not have, and that we decided that those could, in order to make sure that we could meet an April go live, we deferred some of the functionality like the mobile app to after that go live period, and in order to be able to make sure again that we meet the April date. Beyond that, the contract does include provisions for continuous improvement, and we've already started to have some conversations with TransCore about options to bring future enhancements to the project. As an example, there's a lot of buzz in the industry about third-party tolling apps, and that's something that we're looking into to be able to offer to our customers as well. So there is a process in place within the contract beyond the things that we've already laid out in what we call the CCB list that we'll continue to work on and make contract and enhancements better over time. Did that answer your question, Member Rosen?
It did. Thanks.
Okay, sure.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from members of the board? Great, thanks, Will. I think we're moving on to Kelly now.
Yep, I think so. All right, good morning, everyone. So for the record, my name is Kelly Mundell, and I'm the marketing manager in the MDTA's Division of Communications. So I'm going to be giving a brief overview of the outreach. So as we know, we are about to launch Maryland's new tolling brand, Drive Easy MD. And this is going to be a brief overview on the Drive Easy MD outreach efforts that we have put forth, starting a few weeks ago with the intent of continuing several months after go live. And we will blend into what will become standard marketing campaigns that occur throughout years to come. So to begin, our efforts centered around the pre-launch, and this began on March 31st and will continue until April 28th, so only a few days. We needed to brief Maryland drivers on what was to come in terms of technology changes and introduce the down period, which we are currently in, as was already mentioned. We also needed to begin to familiarize the public with the new brand. To do so, we put out 2 different press releases with various timelines to downtime and go live detailed, announced on social media, alerted through Gov Delivery, launched a full-fledged media campaign, including a transition website, and shared toolkits with all interested stakeholders. We even sent out emails that complemented the campaign and press releases to all EasyPass accounts with email addresses on file. You will see the dates associated with all of these pieces listed on both of the outreach slides. It has also been critically important for us to educate our MDTA staff on Drive Easy MD. We've been part of trainings for our frontline service center team and just held a virtual lunch and learn that was very well attended, and that was available to all MDTA staff. Upon go live, our work is not done. We will send out a 3rd press release, launch a secondary campaign resolving all of the curiosities that our pre-launch tried to instill. We will ask our stakeholders and sibling TBUs to lend support and continue to leverage social media to our advantage. This portion of the campaign is designed to be a virtual ribbon cutting of sorts, and our goal is to blanket all media avenues and leave no Maryland driver surprised or confused by the news. We want to usher in the countless customer service improvements with positivity. We are confident in the improvements we've made and are even asking for feedback on the new website from our customers. In short, the aim of our campaign is to package all of the detailed and expansive work that has been done on the back end to improve the customer service experience into a bite-sized, easy-to-understand primer on Drive Easy MD. We are excited for launch, and we are chomping at the bit to put out these go live announcements. So I know that was incredibly abbreviated, but if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Kelly. No questions for me. I will say that I have seen the new website, and it does look great, and it really is quite different than the one we have today. So it should be very well received. Any questions from members of the board for Kelly? Great. Thank you, Kelly. I think, Will, are we moving on to Deb now?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Great. So let me turn it over to Deb. Thank you, Deb.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Deb Sharpless, MDTA's Chief Financial Officer. I'm moving to slide 11. We'll start by talking about traffic and revenue, and then I'll follow up with our plan to clear the backlog. On slide 11, this is a comparison of what we call our COVID-19 forecast of traffic. The dotted line represents the COVID forecast as to where we believe traffic would be, and the solid lines represent the actual. And the takeaway from this is that traffic is either meeting or exceeding the COVID forecast. So when having a forecast, and let me jump over to our official forecast for a second, there's I guess there's really two components to it. First is, are the vehicles on the road? And the second is processing transactions. So when we're underperforming our forecast, it's not because the traffic isn't where the traffic was forecasted, which is really good for us, because when we talk about the backlog plan, you can see we have a method for working through processing those transactions. If we were underachieving the traffic forecast, this forecast that I'm showing you now, that's a problem we can't solve because we can't create or put vehicles on the roadway. So that's the purpose in showing you this graph each month, is to say that from a traffic perspective, the vehicles are aligning with our forecast. And up at the top in the red under legacy, that's the commercial. You can see that it's pretty consistently exceeding the forecast. And then the blue, which is passenger facilities, we had been tracking. We were down a little bit through Thanksgiving and the winter storms, rebounded a little bit, fell back below, and now since March, we've been consistently above the forecast. And you can see similar patterns, with the ICC and the express toll lanes. Sometimes the express toll lanes, some of the uptick, commercial vehicles also use the express toll lanes. So now moving to the next slide. Now slide 12. Now I'm focusing solely on revenue. And over the several months, we've been trying to show you revenue with different types of views, because we don't have a complete review of revenue. We have pieces of it, and trying to put it together in a cohesive message. So the first graph is our official and our unofficial forecast. The official forecast is the forecast that the board approved in December, and it reflected our traffic and revenue report that was issued in November. Now, the unofficial forecast, you could also call that a staff's forecast, in which we work closely with CDM Smith. This forecast reflects the current bond sale that we executed and any type of adjustments that we've made when we defeased bonds, when we reduced the operating budget. It's basically step one of the official forecast that we will produce in June, because the first thing that we do is true up the forecast to actuals. So this unofficial reflects things that have occurred since the last forecast. The downtick that you see in 21, that also reflects the backlog, that when we talk about the transaction backlog and where we are, we've already incorporated that into this unofficial forecast. And then like it's particularly last month, we talked about a shift, how revenue that was in the official forecast in 21 is shifting to 22. And that's why you see the unofficial higher in 22 than the official. So next, let me talk to you for a second about debt service coverage. That's one of our most important measures, is where are we from a debt service coverage perspective. The board policy is 2 times coverage. The unofficial forecast, this is not noted in your slides, but I think it's worth mentioning. If you incorporate the corrective measures that we took, cash defeasance, reducing the operating budget, the debt service coverage in 21, so basically if we would achieve $512 million, we would have debt service coverage of 3.5 times. When you account for the corrective actions that we did to mitigate unprocessed transactions, COVID, AET, transition delays, when all of the actions that we've taken to mitigate, if revenue is achieved at $440 million, our debt service coverage will be 2.5 times. And then the last piece that I share is basically answering the question, how low could our revenue go and we would still make 2 times coverage? And revenue could be reduced by approximately $100 million from our official forecast. So $412 million in revenue, and we would still achieve the 2 times coverage. Okay. And then, the last bullet, as I stated, is the uptick in FY22 is estimated at 56 million. So the slide underneath is comparing our official forecast and actual forecast. And the orange line is our actual. And on this, in the right, there's a table that is a cumulative table that says how much have we underachieved the official forecast per month and what's been the cumulative effect. And so now as we get down to March, the cumulative effect is underperforming our forecast by $44.2 million. Most months we're averaging, somewhere in the $5 million range, mid upper $5 million range. February was unique. We were pushing 10 million, but that's also when we had a lot of storms and a lot of bad weather, which always affects our revenue. So I'm building upon this slide in the next 2 slides and taking the $44 million where we're underperforming and looking at it from 2 perspectives. The one is by facilities, legacy, ICC, ETLs, and the second is by payment method. So slide 13, this is a slide that I've shared with you several times. It's the facility slide. And so at the very lower right-hand corner under the purple header, you see that July through March, we're underperforming by $44.2 million. Now, if we break that down by facilities, 17 million, 17.556 million is in the legacy facilities. The largest piece is under Easy Pass, which you'd expect because that represents the bulk of our money, and the legacies represent by far the largest share of our revenue. You can see that just by the forecast numbers. You know, when you look at the forecast for legacy, it's 326 million. That's in the far right column, whereas the ICC is 30 million, and then the ETLs are 6.7 million. Now the Easy Pass is underperforming because of iTolls. That is where a customer is an Easy Pass customer, but their transponder did not read at the time of travel, and therefore they're in that image bucket. And when the image bucket of transactions are reviewed, they either post as iTolls to a customer's Easy Pass account, or they become a video toll in which a notice of toll due is mailed to them. So second is the intercounty connector. It's below 27 million in Easy Pass, and that's because we've only processed transactions in July. Now, if you recall, this is part of the reason when we have that limited resource for image review, we focused our attention on other facilities and not the ICC. And we'll see that in just a second when we look at the backlog. And then lastly, the express toll lanes is 701,000. Now moving to the next slide on slide 14. This is looking at it from an Easy Pass video perspective. And you can see that Easy Pass, we're below by $50 million, and video is ahead by $6 million. Now, so with Easy Pass, the contributors is by far the ICC, is the largest contributor as to why, and then the iTolls is the second piece. Now down in video, we're a little ahead. When we talked about the forecast that was approved back in December, we assumed a 50% collection rate at the forecast. Also, with delayed notices, we had to assume a delay in collection. So with video notices just starting to be mailed, you know, we assumed no collections in July and August, because for our debt service coverage and rate covenant, if you would recall, we count revenue based on when it's collected, not when it's earned. So that's why we had lower amounts incorporated into our forecast for video. So before moving on to the backlog processing, I'd like to stop here for a second and see if there's any questions. I realized I ran through a lot. Happy to answer any questions regarding traffic and revenue.
So Deb, just one question from me before I turn to members of the board. The decision on the ICC, that was because of the high Easy Pass rate there and just kind of focusing on where we can get a greater benefit by focusing in other areas. Is that correct?
That's right. When we look at average tolls, the average video toll on the ICC is $1.79. And like for comparison purposes, the Fort McHenry tunnel is $4.32. So we focused our efforts on FMT, BHT, JFK, and NICE.
Okay. Great. Any questions from members of the board for Deb before she moves on to the next section? Member Ardinger, I see you had a hand up.
Thank you. Deb, thank you for this information. I appreciate it. This is more from my clarification, and I have two questions. One, and I'm back looking at the revenue actual versus forecast slide, and under your cumulative revenue shortfall. So if looking at it for the fiscal year, and going with the expected revenue shortfall of 72 million, just trying to back into that, it looks like we've got 4 more months in that fiscal year. And that would average out that we're looking at a 6.95 shortfall each month if we average it out. It does look like we've kind of fluctuated in that change each month. Why is that? Because it's not due to traffic, it's due to collection, correct?
Let me, Member Orange, let me first start with the 72 million. So the 72 million is a very conservative estimate. We worked with CDM Smith. It was put together at the time of the credit rating presentation. It was a high level estimate. And the goal in doing this is we wanted to ensure that the forecast from a revenue perspective presented a worst case scenario. Because if the worst case occurred, we wanted to make sure that the mitigation actions that we were taking could address and cover the worst case scenario. So that's the difference. Unofficially, like I realize we're talking about an unofficial forecast, but I expect us to outperform the shortfall of a $72 million forecast. So, if we continue with roughly $5 million, at this point, we would have had 4 months left. That would have put us at 65 million. However, when you see us talk about the backlog processing in a minute, there are months that we will be catching up. So in reality, I expect April to be down in the $5 million range, but then May and June to be in the positive, reducing the underperformance that has accumulated since July.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then your other question was about the fluctuations month by month. That can have a lot. I mean, a little bit, and I mean a really little bit of it could be video toll collections in the beginning, but then it can also be composition of traffic. Like when we look at the traffic reports, this is on slide 11. When commercial was overperforming the forecast and passenger was under, that they pay higher tolls. They provide greater wear and tear on our roadways, and the tolls are higher. That composition also affects the cumulative number.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I guess I had a third question. And so I'm looking at, and again, we're going with the unofficial forecast. And so we're looking, or I guess it's the official forecast is saying that expected to be below by 72 million. But then in 2022, expected to be above forecast by 56 million. Where's that difference? Is that a timing difference, and that whatever that difference is, we'll achieve in 2023, or what happened with that difference?
Okay, so the unofficial is 72 million below the official in 21 and 56 million above in 22. The difference for conservative reasons, we're assuming ends up being uncollectible. We're tracking better than that. But again, we're trying at this juncture, we were trying to layer conservatism in the forecast. Now, a little bit of it is in 23. You can see us kind of trickling over in 23, but there is a piece of it that we assumed to be uncollectible. We just applied the logic that the older any receivable is, the more difficult it is to collect. So we were trying to build conservatism into these numbers because, again, we wanted to make sure that the mitigating actions that have been taken, we would be assured of making and sustaining all of our financial policies.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you. Member Gaines?
Yes, Thanks, Deb, for all this information. And I was troubled looking at this the other day, and maybe I just didn't get it before. But can you explain again why we got Easy Pass money coming in on the I-95 and everywhere else, but it's totally shut down an intercounty connector? I don't understand that. And I guess second part of the question is, I guess it's still shut down. Is that right? And why? Why couldn't we just collect money like we always did? I don't get it.
So the intercounty connector is our only facility that we construct trips. And so what's meant by that is when a customer travels, they might go through 1 or 2 or 3 or 6 or 8 gantries when they travel. And so when a customer does that, we use the term, we build a trip, and we consolidate all of those gantries into one. Before that trip construction can be done, image review has to be performed. An image review is our constraint. And so because it's possible that a customer travels and on gantry 1 and 2, their transponder read, on 3 it did not, and then 4 and 5 it did. And so that's why you have to do the image review before that trip is constructed. Otherwise, we have something that's called split trips, and customers can be overcharged with split trips. And so since the ICC Easy Pass required the image review resource, we focused that limited resource on the other facilities.
Right. And that's still the case, I guess. When for the next few months, is that right?
So with the transition, CAPS has been performing image review and trip construction. So they have quite a queue of transactions that have gone through image review and trip construction, waiting to be able to send over. And that's partly why when you see the backlog plan that we're going to talk about in a minute, we're going to be able to send over full days worth of transactions, both Easy Pass and image plate, and be able to keep up with them. Pardon me, because that constraint doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Member Cox, did I see your hand go up for a second? Nope. Okay, great. Member Von Paris?
Yes, I guess, Deb, first of all, thank you for all the work that you and your team have been doing. As it relates to the ICC, I guess, is it safe to say that the complexity of the and the magnitude of based on the trips, the number of video images specifically to ICC, that it's much more complex, time consuming, and we're chasing, like was mentioned, the average of $1.79 on that with our resources, limited resources, and is putting that effort and energy resources into the like, as said, for example, the other legacy facilities where the average is like Fort McHenry, 432, like you mentioned earlier. So that's, I know we had discussion about that, and this is what you're fair to say that.
Yes. Yes, that's what we did. That the image review and a lot, it was manual, was a manual image review. The trip construction piece, that's that's an automated process. The problem was that you couldn't get to that automated process until you got through the manual image review piece. So yes, it had to do with average toll rates.
Thank you.
Yeah, Deb, let me pipe in here too. Member Von Paris, you're absolutely correct. And with the limited resources that Conduit had, we had made a presentation, I think it was 2 board meetings ago, where we had mentioned this, that it made more sense to go put our resources towards the legacy systems. Quite frankly, you get better bang for the buck, if you will. And I remember, I think it was member Gangemi said, that's a really good business decision. And so that's why we did that, because it takes so much more resources to put these trips together. And member Gaines, it's sort of like, if I can give an analogy, it's like your credit card bill. If I were to ask you what your credit card bill is going to be at the end of the month, you wouldn't be able to tell me. And your bank does not send you a separate bill for each transaction. They pull them all together for the entire month. And so they construct your bill, if you will, with all your transactions at the same time. And that's sort of like the way the ICC works. So it does take a lot more resources. You're right, Member Von Paris.
It's because, for an example, what could happen is, and this is particularly people that waive their transponders. If that transponder read on one of 5 gantries, then someone's reviewing 4 images. Well, and those 4 images that they're reviewing collectively on average gets you the $1.78. Whereas if someone's going to review 4 images, that's 4 separate transactions at FMT, BHT. And that's part of the, trying to use limited resources as wisely as possible. Because, the return on investment from image review on the ICC is even lower, because you can review multiple images at different gantries, but it's still only one toll rate.
Chairman.
Member Cox?
Hey, Deb, what if a person traveled the entire ICC, the entire trip? What is the fee for doing that? I got your average, but what's if they travel the entire from Montgomery to PG County all the way through, what would be the charge?
I haven't looked at it lately. I believe it's right around $4. Will, we were just looking at this, and I just don't recall the second.
Maybe if we could go to Member Rosen's question, I'll look that up right now and try to get you an answer.
Great. Thanks, Will. Let me turn it over to Member Rosen, and then we'll come back to you. I think it depends on peak, off peak, that kind of thing, the construction.
Yeah. One thing to add, I'm sorry, just one thing to add real quickly. The average number of gantries a customer travels on the ICC is around 2.5 gantries.
So thanks, Deb, for all the information. As always, for the revenue forecast, when we're looking at it for just the Easy Pass, I know you mentioned that of the 50 million, the vast majority is the ICC. So the ICC is 27 million of that. So that results in, so that leaves us with 23 million, of which 22 is for the Easy Pass actual versus forecast. Can you just help me understand more of that 22 million, since it sounds like those are the tolls that are more regularly processed through the system? It's easier to get those out and not just billed, but extracted from the Easy Pass accounts. How is that? Because of traffic? Is that because there's now a lot of tolls became I-tolls instead of were accounted in the Easy Pass bucket? What accounts for the 22 million?
So Member Rosen, let me make sure I understand the 22 million that you're referring to.
Yes. Yeah. So on the revenue versus on the actual versus official, on that top, the Easy Pass grid, and then it says so we have, if we look at the 344.
I'm sorry, let me find 344.
Yeah.
So I'm on slide 14. Is that where you are?
That's right. That's right. So so I'll take you to the 23.
Okay, I'm sorry. The total. Yes, the forecast, 344.
Yeah. So if we take the 344 minus the 294, but then remove the ICC, that gets you to 23. And then of that, 22 is legacy, 1 million is ETL. But let's focus on that and on the 23. How come how come we have a $23 million actual versus forecast for the Easy Pass specifically, not including the ICC?
Okay, so that is, almost entirely ITOLs. And so when we, and Will and I, we went back and forth on this. We will provide a flow chart of transactions from the roadway as it works its all the way down to posting to an account. But when a transaction occurs in the road, the first thing, was the transponder read, yes or no? If no, it goes into an image bucket. And then the next step, I'm sorry, so the ones that were transponder read, they process electronically very efficiently. And that's why we were able to keep up with the Easy Pass transponder read transactions throughout this. So when transactions are in the image bucket, the next thing that is done first is image review. After image review is complete, we look and see if that plate number belongs to a Maryland Easy Pass account holder. If so, we post it against the account. The next thing we do previously was look and see if that plate belongs to an away agency Easy Pass account. And then we would post, we would have a receivable from the other account, from the other states. So because image review is our constraint, and so even though we focused on certain facilities, we're still not even current on the facilities that we focused on. That's why Easy Pass is below, because we have these transactions, they belong in Easy Pass because the customer's plates registered to their Easy Pass account, but their transponder didn't read when they were traveling, either because they waived it, it wasn't even in the car, or the very, very remote times that it just doesn't read, like a low battery. And so if we think about the waterfall, and we know that image reviews are constraint, ITOLs are downstream from that image review.
Thank you.
Will, were you able to get the answer from Member Cox?
I was, sure. So for a 2-axle vehicle, just to repeat the question, what was the toll rate for the entire ICC travel? 2-axle vehicle traveling from I-370 to Cantera Drive, US 1, during the peak period on weekdays is $3.86. During off-peak period, it's $2.98. And then overnight, it's $1.23. So again, there's variable tolling on the ICC, to try to help manage congestion. And so there's different rates based on the time of day.
Very good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great.
I had a quick follow-up.
Sure. Member Gaines?
Deb, I think I'm starting to understand your image review and all that, the problems that caused. I guess my question is, didn't we have that before this budget in the prior year? Didn't we have those same issues? And it didn't seem to be a problem then. Why is it this year? Keeping up, I mean.
So I'm going to ask Will to step in a second as well. No, it was not a pervasive problem, that when there was the keeping up of things, and it fell swiftly, November, December, I recall it was, around 10,000 images were reviewed in total for 2 months. So as we got closer to the end of Conduit's contract, and Secretary Slater had mentioned, Conduit was shedding resources regularly, which often happens at the end of contracts. And image review was certainly one of the areas that was severely impacted, as well as the call center. Will, is there anything else you can add regarding how in the beginning of the year things were much better than as the year moved on?
Sure. So I think the biggest issue here on why image review is a challenge is simply that we had the pausing of the notices of toll due. We, from March of last year through October, we were not processing images, mailing them out and everything. And so there were images that the back office was able to pre-review, if you will, and we were able to get some of that done in advance. However, the backlog, if you think about it, the backlog of NOTDs during that pause, which again was done to try to provide some financial relief to our customers, that time period was also coinciding with when the original plan transition to the new tolling system was expected. And so we did not want to have a giant backlog of transactions that were in flux with the old system. And so there was a critical timing piece here where we want to make sure that our existing tolling vendor processed all the transactions that they had so that their system was clean by the transition. So we were monitoring that very closely and sending them transactions only to an amount that we were sure that they were going to be able to process. So when we resumed the NOTDs, they had already done the image review on what we had sent. But as the transition date became more clear, we decided to continue to send more. And that's where they had this giant backlog of NOTDs to process, and more images there to process than what they possibly could between the time of the start of our cutover period up until when we started sending them more images. Does that make sense? Go ahead.
And prior to the official forecast being finalized by CDM Smith, our director of EasyPass worked with the vendor to, verify that what volume they could keep up with. And if you've heard us talk before about 1.8 million, remember we were ramping up to be able to do 1.8 million per month. So that was an assumption in the forecast that turned out to be unachievable.
And you can actually see, just to build on this a little bit more, you can actually see in the presentation on slide 14, if you look at the video line in the actuals, in the months of December and January, we had, nice processing volume on the video transactions. And then there's a decline in February and March. And some of the reason for that decline is that the months of December and January were sort of feeding off of the images that were in the backlog that had already been pre-reviewed. After that, we were working off of the backlog that had not yet been processed through an image review, and that became the bottleneck. So there was a period where we were worried about being able to get all of the mailings out, and then eventually our bottleneck was the image review process for the backlog.
Okay, thank you.
So if there aren't any other questions regarding where we are traffic and revenue perspective, again, we will achieve our financial standards. Our debt service coverage will be above 2 times coverage, and our unrestricted cash will be above 350. I'll move on to our plan for clearing the backlog.
Hey, Deb, this is Sean. Before you move on, I just wanted to state for the record that Chairman Slater has now transitioned off the call and I'm on. So for the record, I will be covering the rest of the meeting for him. So thank you.
So the first slide that we're looking at is slide 16. And it's an accumulation of backlog as of April 29th, our go live date. Now, this backlog also includes the cutover period in which we haven't been able to process any transactions, as data migration occurs with the system. So that reflects that, that's roughly, 2 weeks. Normally a month is about 10 million transactions. So that's incorporated in here as well. So let me first kind of run through these date periods. So the first at the top, we see the ICC. And so regardless of the type of transaction that we're talking about, the backlog is from, July 21st on to current. And that's what we just saw when we were reporting revenue. Then when we jump down to the legacy facilities, FMT, BHT, NICE, and JFK, these are the facilities we've put more focus on. The backlog for EasyPass transponder red is the 13th through the 29th. So this is the cutover period. In order to have transactions processed through, we had to stop on the 12th, and that's the cause of this backlog. It's normal cutover. When you look down below at the AET facilities, you see the exact same backlog for EasyPass transponders. So that backlog is just, it's part of transition. So then when we get into image-based, whether it's EasyPass plate-based, which plate-based is an ITOL, it's another way of stating it, as well as video tolls, the backlog is from the 28th through the end of April. So when we said that we were focusing our efforts on these facilities, our concerted effort only on these facilities only got us, roughly 5 weeks of image review over this time period. So I think that just shows how constrained that resource was. But still, it's another 5 weeks that did get processed, which was helpful. So this is the backlog for image associated transactions for these facilities. And then the AET, again, I already addressed the transponder piece. And then the image base is from July 21st on. And the same thing, we just replaced greater emphasis on these other 4 facilities. And so in total, we have 18.4 million transponder transactions, and the bulk of them being the ICC, and then plate-based is largely from the legacy facilities, and then video is a collection across all of our facilities. So this is what the backlog looks like, call it on day one once we transition. So now moving on to the next slide. When developing the plan to clear the backlog, we wanted to start off by recognizing what are our goals. And immediately when we started kind of writing out our goals and what are we trying to accomplish, you start having competing goals with each other. Some goals would say process these transactions as quick as possible, and others say go very slow. And so we had to balance the two in developing the strategy. So the first one is expeditiously recognizing revenue and restoring to normalcy. The second one, and a very important one that we gave an awful lot of weight to, is retaining satisfied EasyPass customers. When we start processing the backlog, If we did it too fast, their EasyPass accounts would be replenished at a rate that may not be sustainable for the customer. And we could cause them to go into negative status regularly. We could cause them to get frustrated and lose customers if we went at a rate too fast. The next one is we wanted to reduce the impact on the IAG. This is the away agencies, the Del Dots, the V Dots, the New Yorks, all of the agencies in the EasyPass group. There's a 60-day timeout rule that applies. When you're within 60 days, the toll agency guarantees tolls. If you're outside of that time period, an agency has to agree to lift the filter. Most do. The ones that don't, we video toll. So we wanted to minimize the impact of the 60-day rule. We wanted to leverage image review in real time to have feedback. CAPS is required to send trip transactions over to TransCore within 96 hours. So in that 96-hour window, image review is occurring. So if they see something that doesn't look right with an image, it's too dark, the camera's dirty, the angle's wrong, they have the ability to adjust that, and therefore the window of time where we don't have as good an image is greatly reduced when we can get back to this normalcy and close this feedback loop. We want to post video tolls to their account as quickly as possible, because then they're available on the website for them to go and pay before they ever receive a notice of toll due. This has two advantages. One, it gives customers the opportunity to receive a 15% discount for early payment. And secondly, customers may choose to be a pay-by-plate customer moving forward by telling us to retain their credit card. And then that way in the future, when they go through and we read their license plate, we would automatically charge their credit card at the lower former cash rate. It also, we want to meter the mailing of NOTDs so that we don't overwhelm the customer service reps as well as customers. We want to make sure that the contractors can clear this backlog consistent with the contracts. And we want to be able to respond to customer feedback as we receive it and make adjustments if needed. So the plan that's presented incorporates all of these goals and tries to create the right balance. So moving on to slide 18, this is a higher level view, and then next we'll look at more in a more granular level. So the plan is in two pieces. One has to do with posting transactions to a customer's account, and that is either an EasyPass account or a video toll account. This piece of the plan that we're talking about is not about mailing NOTDs or any escalations. This part of the plan is solely about posting transactions to a customer's account. And so the first step is the backlog of transactions that's in the CAPS system. We're moving them over to the TransCore system. The second piece is posting the transactions to an account. An EasyPass gets applied against a customer's prepaid balance, and video tolls are available on Drive Easy MD to be able to make payment. And then we want to post 14 days of transactions in a 7-day period. And we're doing these, pardon me, in tranches or batches, and they break down into 4 categories, and these colors correspond to the next schedule. Pardon me. The first batches, there's 2 shades. It's a lighter yellow and a darker yellow. The the first piece is we're looking back 60 days. And so that's March 2nd. So when we go live, we're not going to start processing the transactions for the 29th or the 30th. We're going to do the 60-day look back because it closes that 60-day stale date with the IAG. And so that's the first thing we do. We go back and we grab everything, and this means everything. This means image and transponder read transactions, and we bring them current, and they'll be current May 24th. Now these are NG transactions, which means customers have the ability to pay by video, toll, and Easy Pass. And then on May 24th, we'll begin to process what we call the NG transactions, which is the day of our go live through June 16th. So at June 16th, we will have processed all of March, April, May, and half of June by June 16th. Then we go into the next phase, which is where we have to catch up the ICC backlog, FSK, ETL, and Bay with the other facilities. And so once we get into this purple pink category, we're rotating. In that 14 days, we're doing 1 week of current and 1 week of backlog. So once we go live, the backlog never grows any larger. It ends up being, starting mid-June, it's reduced by 1 week per week. And then by August 2nd, all of the facilities from a backlog perspective is at the same point, and we start processing those transactions at that point in time while continuing to process our current. At a high level, that's our plan. And the biggest takeaway is we're doing 14 days worth of transactions in a 7-day period. And we will speed up, or slow down if needed. So then this next slide is, more detailed when you start looking at it on a week by week basis. We've also included this schedule in your materials just as an attachment, which of course allows it to be a little larger. So I'm going to walk through this again. Pardon me, some of the things I'm saying will repeat, but the intent is that understanding the high level at first and then the week by week schedule afterwards will help provide clarity. So week of 4/26, this week is when we start processing ICC transactions, the images. We don't need to process, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I got confused for 1 second. Pardon me. I'm sorry. During this week, we're processing all transactions for all the facilities starting on March 2nd. So it's the ICC, and then plus it's everything else except for the ICC. So together that means all 9. And we start the week of the 2nd. And you see us continuing that in the lighter color until we get to the week of May 24th. And then we're doing all the facilities where there are 3G transactions. And the difference with 3G is customers have the ability to do pay by plate if they choose that. And then that gets us through the June 16th as of the week of June 14th. So then when we get into the week of June 21st and 22nd, We're processing the ICC transactions, all of them, plus we're processing the FSK, HATEM, ETL, and BAY, just the image. We don't need to do the EasyPass transponders for these facilities because we've already done them, but we do need to do them for the ICC. Now, in this time period of June 21st, June 28th, that's the end of our fiscal year. So at the end of our fiscal year, we will have processed 5 months worth of ICC transactions: July, March, April, May, and June. For FMT, we will have processed 12 months of EasyPass transponder read transactions. And for iTolls and video, we will have processed 6 months: July, August, March, April, May, and June. And for FSK, we will have processed all of EasyPass transponder read 12 months and 5 months of iTolls and video: July, March, April, May, and June. So once we get into fiscal year 22, the backlog that's remaining is the 7 months of the ICC, 6 months of iTolls and video for FMT, BHT, JFK, and NICE, and 7 months of iTolls and video for FSK, HATEM, ETL, and BAY. And so after we're into the new fiscal year, we're just consistently going back and forth between the backlog, which are the color shaded, but you can see up in the week of June 21st, the white background or clear background, that's where we're processing current transactions each week. And this is how you can see that once we start, the backlog no longer grows and it's only reduced week after week. So I'll wrap up this last slide about the backlog and then go back for questions. This is the second part of the plan, which has to do with mailing notices. Prior to resuming mailing notices, we will have to take care of unprocessed operational tasks, whether it's payment, applying payments, issuing transponders, issuing refunds, any normal operational tasks that were not completed by time we transitioned will need to be taken care of first. And then we'll resume the issuances of citations. And the estimated time frame for that is mid-May, after the processing is done. And then we'll resume mailing NOTDs on a ramp-up basis in late May, possibly early June. And the ramp-up is over 3 months. So for the first 30 days, we're mailing 30 days worth of NOTDs. And then the next 45 days at a rate of 1.5 months per month, and then 60 days per 30 days. And we estimate to have all of the mailings current in the spring of 22. And the volume that we send and the time period in which it's resolved, the amount of customers that go and pay online to take advantage of the early payment discount or become pay-by-plate customers will impact the speed in which this is resolved. Now, where the spring of 22 comes is something I failed to mention on the prior slide, is we see ourselves with the backlog completely resolved in January of 22. And so once the transactions are processed, then It then takes time for the mailings to occur. And that's where the spring of 22 comes into play. So with that, happy to address questions with our plan to clear the backlog.
Yeah, Member Gaines, you have a question?
Yes. I think you guys are on the right idea, have the right idea with your plan, of course. But I don't see where we take care of the ICC backlog. Did I miss that somewhere?
Sure. So let me refer you to page 19, slide 19.
Right, I'm there.
Okay, so right from the beginning, right from this first week, we start processing ICC transactions, starting, I'm sorry?
Those are new transactions you're processing.
Well, March 2nd is part of the backlog. So initially what we're doing is we look at the date range. We are, we're starting with March, getting ourselves current by June of 21. And then when we get to the purple, we're going back to July of 20. And then working our way current with the backlog.
Those ones you're in the purple are not ICCs, I don't think, at least according to the table, they're not.
Hey,
They
Deb.
are.
Well, then maybe the table is missing.
No, it's the date range applies to all of the facilities listed. So there's 2 rows of facilities, and the reason for that is the ICC transactions that are to the far left. NG means that we're processing EasyPass, iTolls, and Image. We're doing all 3 for the date range shown, whereas the second column of facilities, we're only processing Image, which means iTolls and video. And that's the reason why we have the 2 different columns.
Okay.
Deb,
Will you could add something?
I was just going to suggest, because the table has a lot of information in it and a lot of dates are shown. So I was going to give, for the benefit of the group, just step through what each column means in the table for a moment, if that's helpful, because I think that will clear up the issue if that's a benefit. Deb's much more concise explanation may have covered it, but happy to walk through and explain what each column means to try to get that more clear.
Yeah.
Would that be helpful?
Yeah, well, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, so as Deb mentioned, we go live, as we talked about, on April 29th. So starting on the far left, where it says week of, that's the actual real-time week that we will be processing transactions. Okay, so we're going to begin to process transactions on the week of April 26th, and then the dates beyond that are showing you when we expect to actually process them. The next column is showing you, the next 2 columns really are showing you the facility, and basically everything in that first column is the ICC. And as Deb mentioned, the second column, transaction type, those are the ICC transactions, Member Gaines, that you're actually asking about. And those are the EasyPass transactions that Deb mentioned, that are EasyPass based transactions when you go back to the earlier slide 16 when you're describing them. The next type of backlog that is the 4th column to the right, the facility, is a description of the facility again, and the 5th column is just letting you know, it's making the distinction that that's image based. So image based again is EasyPass image and the traditional video toll image base. Okay, so there's really 2 types of backlog that are being highlighted by these 4 columns. The first 2 are the ICC non-video based, the normal Easy Pass transponder, and then the second two, which are strictly the image based, and they let you know which facilities we're working on at each point. Then the start and end date shown is the period of when those transactions actually occurred. So in the first week, April 26th, we will start processing transactions that had developed between March 2nd of 2021 and March 15th of 2021. Then when you go to the next column in the current section, that's again the distinction between backlog and current is these are no longer transactions that are behind us. They're in real time. When it comes into the lane side system with CAPS, it'll immediately transfer over to TransCore. So those current transactions, looking at the far left, again, we list all facilities. All of the current transactions are obviously developed in the new 3G system. That's why they're the transaction type. And again, the start and end date columns are when those transactions actually occurred. So the first transaction that we will start processing, that we process on June 21, you can see that it's current because it was developed in that same week of June 17th of 2021. So that's what's meant by current. The week we're processing it is the week when it was actually incurred in our system. So I said a lot there, and I'll stop, but hopefully that clarifies the chart a little bit.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I see Member Rosen, you have your hand up, sir.
Yes. Quick question, probably an easy one. So Deb, when we look at the estimated backlog period, it looks like we're gonna start processing for those tolls from as far back as July 21st, 20 and beyond. So basically, as I understood from prior meetings, we were still catching up from even prior to that. Are we all? So we're all caught up now through July 21st of last year?
Yes. We are for the ICC and FSK, Hatem, ETL, and Bay. And then we're up to the 28th for the remaining 4 facilities.
Right. Okay, great, thank you.
And on this, sometimes when, all of us, you're close to something, you can see different ways of presenting the table. That when we're talking about the ICC, and it says NG, that means all payment types. That's the transponder, it's iTolls, and it's video. Whereas the second group of backlog, they're all image. This table, and if it's more clear, we can do this, that when the columns to the left where it says Easy Pass, we could put Easy Pass transponder straight on down. And then on the next columns where we're saying all except ICC, we could put all, that the images for ICC, I was counting in the NG. But if it's more clear to keep transponders in one column and images in another column, we certainly can make that change. It doesn't change any dates or anything. It's just if that makes the understanding better.
Okay, thanks, Deb. Member Ardinger, I see your hands up.
Thank you. Deb and Will, thank you. Laying this out is very, very helpful. I did have a question. In June 21st of 21, when we start sending out notices for trips that occurred back in July of 2020, how are we going to notify the customer and make them aware of why they're now just seeing this transaction at this time?
So Deb, I'll start this maybe, and then if you want to jump in. So in a way, we've already done that. I mentioned that the open letter that Jim Port sent out back in March, it already clarified to our customers through a pretty broad letter that was shared through social, and it even got published in a number of articles. It notified that the ICC transactions would be playing catch up, if you will, through this backlog processing. But our communications department, Kelly Mundell, talked about the communication strategy. We're going to continue to echo that same message to our customers, reminding them of the importance of keeping their accounts replenished. And I'll just add to Deb reminded me, and I think I did make one little mix up here on that second column, the transaction type. I tried to distinguish image-based and video, and she's right. NG and 3G are more broadly of both transponder and image. So thank you, Deb, for clarifying that. I did mix it up a little bit, even myself, trying to describe the table. So hopefully, Member Ardinger, that answers your question.
Okay. Thanks. Oh, Member Von Paris, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have two quick questions. On the processing on the blue section, we go down, and this may have already been addressed. I may have missed it. I'm not sure, but we go down on the right column. We go all the way down. We were talking earlier about processing starting in March and going back, right, going backwards. But then we come down to 20 on 12/28/20, which pretty much completes 20. Then we go to 1/4/2021. Did I
I'm
miss
sorry.
that?
Yeah, Member Von Paris, I'm sorry, I lost following along. So when we start off, and I'm in the backlog column, where it says start, the 3-2.
Okay, I'm at the bottom of the blue section coming up till it hits 2020 on the right column. From the bottom all the way to the right coming up. My question is, why are we jumping? Why are we taking all of 2021 and processing that in the order that we were, moving backwards from, like 3, 2, 1, and then?
I understand now. When we're doing this 60-day back, right, and we're starting with March, that's because of the goal of minimizing transactions older than 60 days with the IAG, the away agencies. Because when we send transactions within that 60-day window, if that transponder was active on what we call a plate file, then those agencies are guaranteeing that toll, the same as we guarantee tolls for them. So we're doing this 60-day back first in order to not have any more transactions outside of that 60-day window. So that's why we're starting there. And then once we're current with the June 16th, now we're going back to the oldest transactions we have. And we're working the backlog on a FIFO basis, first in, first out, up until current. So if it wasn't for the 60-day IAG goal, then we would have started with the July 2020 transactions.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have is, you had mentioned, Deb, we can speed it up or slow it down. Would the slowing it down be more based on the sensitivity to customer service or replenishment or something of that nature on accounts? So in other words, if we pushed and we sped it up too quickly, then we might have a replenishment issue. Is that part of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly one driver. We're open right now to saying we have to accept feedback, and even feedback from ourselves and feedback from the call center. So we're just saying that we've got to be open to some adjustments based on our experience. That some of that feedback might come from the IAG. We have a meeting later on today with member agencies. They may ask us to do something a little faster, a little slower. And so that's all I meant by that is whatever our experiences are, we consider that feedback and we adjust appropriately as we do with all plans. That's what I meant by that. And so your example of customers, that is one experience that we would consider along with a number of others.
Okay. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Von Paris, Member Von Paris. Member Arger, I see your hand is still up. Did you have another question or are you clear?
I'm sorry. It should be off.
Oh, you're fine. And I see Member Cox.
Hey, Deb, just following through on John, if you go back to March, April, May of 2020, and people are not going to get notice, am I following this correctly, to maybe October, November, December next year of their total toll when they incurred toll back in that early part of 2020? Do you think you're going to get some pushback on that?
To the April, May, June time period, they've already been noticed there. Customers have been noticed through the week of transactions from July 2020 for the ICC, FSK, Hatem, ETL, and Bay. And then they've been noticed up until August 28th for the remaining 4 facilities. So thus far, when we had the stoppage in order to focus on customers and we started mailing notices then, and even up until the notices that Conduit was recently mailing, we were not getting feedback was not regarding the age of the transaction. That was not something that we were experiencing. A more common feedback would be delays in postage. The mail service was like, that was a more common feedback. Not that I'm aware of, nor that we've collectively talked about is the age of the transponder. I'm sorry, the age of the transaction. Will, is that consistent with your understanding as well?
Generally, yes. And I think it's important to note that, we inherent to the plan of pausing notices of toll due, you had this age issue no matter what. From March till October, we were not doing mailings of NOTDs. So you kind of have baked into the process the aging of some of those transactions. So we've done a lot to message that pause to our customers and to make it clear that, all of our customers remain responsible for paying their tolls for usage of our facilities, and to make sure that they're aware of this aging issue as much as we possibly can. And we'll continue to message that. But again, we agree, we want to restore normalcy into the timeframes, but inherent with the pause, there's going to be aging that is an issue that we're trying to overcome.
Thank you.
And the toll rate for these transactions up to or through, let me say it this way, through December 31st will be at the cash rate, because at the time of travel that the video toll rate was lowered to the cash rate, and it's only transactions January 1st and after that the video toll rate was restored. And this is for many of the legacy facilities, not all of them. The previous AET facilities were not adjusted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Arger.
This time my hand was really up, so
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
this may be something you're already planning, but I would just think when we do send out those notices that are rather old, will there still be will there be something inserted that will be some type of notification as to why? I know that you've sent out a lot of, you've already prepped it and sent out a lot of information, but people tend to forget or didn't pay attention until it's actually in front of them. So I didn't know if there was something that could accompany that notice when they receive it.
We can certainly look into that. I admittedly will say that anything we do to modify the NOTDs could have a cost. So we'll sort of have to look at the cost benefit of including an additional mailing in with the package, but that's something that we can look into.
Thank you. Any further questions for Bill, Kelly? Yeah, Member Gaines.
Question, and that was quick comment, really. I mean, Deb was talking about whether we have the option of speeding up or slowing down. I would advise against slowing down. I mean, I think the older these bills get, the worse your collections will be. I think that's our experience, and I don't know. With speeding up, you have other constraints, so can't really comment on that too much. But and I think we've done pretty good by our customers, really. I mean, they should be happy. If they're not happy, we're not going to make them happy. But and my last question is, aren't we a monopoly anyway? How can we lose these customers? They're going to swim. Hey.
No, but so we agree with you that it's, right this minute, we can't really anticipate a reason that we would slow down. We by just doing 2 weeks in a single week, right? You have to do more than a single week in order to clear a backlog, or you'll never clear it. We just say it because there may be an unknown that we're not aware of, but we tend to agree with you. Right now, we're not seeing any reason that we're going to need to slow down. We're hopeful that there's reasons that we can speed up. So we're open to that as well. But there are some of our facilities that the detour route is, unpleasant. The Bay Bridge is a perfect example of that. When you have the harbor crossings, technically there are alternative routes that can be made, but it's also more about the type of customer. Easy Pass is the desired payment method. Jim introduced the idea good, better, best. It's good to pay by video, it's better to pay by plate, and it's best to pay by Easy Pass. And so there are advantages that we try to pass on to customers, such as lower toll rates, but there's also cost savings for us and certainty with tolls when someone's an Easy Pass customer. So we try to share the benefits of Easy Pass with the customers. So I guess in theory, yes, someone will still use our facility, but the question is, what payment method are they going to use?
Yeah, if I could just add to that, I think if you think about our customer base, more than 80% of our customers today utilize Easy Pass, and the vast majority of them link a credit card. It's sort of plug and play, and they are very happy with the service and utilize our tolls without giving it much thought. And that's kind of how you want transportation. When you drive over a bridge, you're thinking about the soccer game you're getting to, and not whether the Easy Pass is set up correctly, or you're going to auto replenish on time, and is the bridge safe, all those kind of questions. You don't want our customers thinking about that. And at the end of the day, the auto replenish issue, if we go too fast and harm our customers in a way, some of them may choose to discontinue their Easy Pass service, which would be a detriment to them long term and to MDTA. So it's important for us to try to do this in a way that has some balance and tries to make sure that we're fair to our Easy Pass customers. And again, the current plan is to process 14 days of transactions in 7 days. So in a month, you could be getting double the auto replenishment that you normally would have. So that's something that we talked about, that rate of auto replenishment quite a bit in setting up this plan. We feel like that's probably a reasonable number for our customers, but going a whole lot higher may be too aggressive.
Okay, great. Thanks, Will. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Deb, Kelly, and Will for the presentation. With no other questions for this item, we will move on to the legislative session update. Mr. Brad Ryan.
Good morning. I'm with you today to provide the board with a wrap-up of the 2021 session of the Maryland General Assembly. This year's 90-day session adjourned sine die on the night of April 12th, and due to COVID, it was a unique session. Virtual bill hearings, limited in-person meetings, and the House meeting in 2 separate chambers. I have presented these bills that I'm about to mention to you previously, so I'm going to provide an abbreviated presentation in the interest of your time, but I'm happy to entertain any questions on these bills or any other matter. First, Delegate Carr introduced legislation with a cross-file bill in the Senate from Senator King that would end the ability of the MVA to suspend vehicle registrations for those that hit the $1,000 threshold of toll debt, which is established in Comar. This year, the bill was again approved by the House, but was not moved by the Senate. Delegate Lukey introduced legislation to require BPW approval for the planting of any invasive or non-native plant species. A number of state agencies submitted their concerns with this bill and their support for separating non-native plant species with invasive plant species. And the bill sponsor agreed to amend the bill so that it only prohibits the planting of invasive species, which of course the MDTA never plants. The amended bill passed both chambers and has been sent to the governor. Delegate Krim introduced legislation with a cross-file bill in the Senate from Senator King to retroactively reduce the civil penalty to $25 for each outstanding citation. The House bill was voted unfavorably in subcommittee, and the bill was later withdrawn by the sponsor. The Senate bill did not receive any action after the bill hearing. Again, this session, Senator Saling reintroduced legislation to allow free passage of the Broning turnaround, which would allow vehicles who use the 10.9-mile FSK facility, yet do not traverse the actual Key Bridge, to do so without paying a toll. No further action was taken on this bill after the bill hearing. And lastly, Senator Hershey and the House Cecil County delegation introduced legislation to relocate the JFK toll gantry on I-95 to a location between Maryland 279 and Maryland 272, north of the current location, and to prohibit the MDTA from making important improvements to the existing toll plaza. The House version was voted unfavorably in committee, and the Senate did not take any action beyond the bill hearing. For each of the bills I mentioned this morning, letters of information were submitted to legislators to express how they would impact the MDTA and how they would impact those who use our facilities. As always, thank you for your time, and I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Brad. And before I turn it over for any questions, thank you and the legislative team for all your hard work. It was a very unusual session, a lot of 100% remote, but you guys managed to stay connected and get the information you needed down to the General Assembly in a timely fashion, get it over here for us for review. So it's outstanding job by you and the team over there. And thanks for staying connected with our team downstairs as well. So
Thank you, sir. It was a team effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys were, as all the other business units were, on top of the game over there. So, maybe this is the wave of the future. Everything's going to be remote. you just never know. But I know it's hard to, in relationship wise, to be able to have that one-on-one conversation sometimes and grab 2 seconds with a delegate to express your case. But you guys did outstanding during that process. So. And if any other members, Brad mentioned letters of information on the bills. If you have any interest in reading those, they do put a lot of time and effort in those. So if you have any interest, reach out to Brad, and I'm sure he'd be happy to share them with you. So it's good stuff, good work. So thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Any questions for Brad? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You as well. Natalie, as far as we know, has Delegate Carr called or reached out?
Chairman, I have not heard from Delegate Carr, and it does not look that he has been on the meeting as of yet.
Okay, I'll do a call out. Delegate Carr, are you on the line? Okay, hearing that, we will move on to the next agenda item. This is the one that we shuffled around a hair. Mary O'Keefe, you will be on for the years of service recognition for some of our two retiring employees. Bittersweet, they've reached this point in their career where we're honoring them for their service, and of course, they will leave a hole at the agency. So with that, Mary, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Before I start, I just want to touch base with Jim, because Jim Ports was able to join us today. And I just wanted to see if he'd like to proceed with it or if he'd like me to proceed with it.
Oh, great. I didn't realize he was still on. Thanks, Mary.
Jim, should I proceed, or are you available? Okay. I see he's on mute.
Sorry.
There he goes. Okay.
It wouldn't come off of mute. I kept hitting it, but it wouldn't program. No, go ahead. You're going to do the citations now?
Yes, we're up to the citations. If you'd like, I can do it, because I know that you had a conflict.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. All right. Then I'll proceed. Okay, I'll proceed. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I'm Mary O'Keefe, Chief of Staff at the MDTA. And on behalf of Jim Ports, our Executive Director, it is my pleasure and honor to present two board resolutions for two members of our team who are retiring after 30 years of service. They're both in your book if you'd like to follow along. We have a resolution recognizing the services of Bryant C. Talley. He was retiring as a Facility Maintenance Technician 3. And Mr. Talley joined the MDTA in 1988. So he's retiring with about 33 years of service. And he was able to progress through his specialty. He became a Facility Maintenance Technician 1 in 2018, and a Facility Maintenance Technician 2 in 2019. And with his hard work and dedication and skill, he was promoted to Facility Maintenance Technician 3 on April 25th, 2020. So he was recognized by his coworkers, and they expressed gratitude for his dedication, and his personality and calm demeanor will be missed. So our resolution reads, therefore it be resolved on the occasion of Bryant C. Talley's retirement from his distinguished career of exemplary service, the chairman and members of the Board of Transportation Authority hereby express to Mr. Talley their most sincere appreciation for his excellence and commitment. And we have a framed resolution, as we always do, which will be sent to Mr. Talley in recognition of this. Our second retirement resolution is recognizing the services of Lynn Outerbridge Gardner. She comes out of our toll operations sector. She's an MDTA toll operations manager. And she joined in 1986 and is retiring now after 35 years. And she continued to progress through the toll field, and she became a toll collector 2 in 1987, progressed to toll collector 3 in 1990. And again, with her skill and knowledge, she was promoted up the ranks to MDTA toll sergeant in 1995 and to MDTA toll collection shift supervisor in 2003. And then with her continued experience and skill, she was promoted in 2011 to toll collection assistant manager, and then in 2018, toll operations manager. She's a valuable member of the team. In 2004, she received an appreciation letter for her professionalism during the work and daytime lane closures of the Bay Bridge. Then MDTA Chairman Robert Flanagan and his fellow board members recognized and extended appreciation to her for her long hours she worked during that time and the patience she showed to many frustrated motorists. So her resolution reads, therefore it be resolved on the occasion of Lynn Otterbridge Gardner's retirement for her distinguished career of exemplary service, the chairman and members of the Maryland Transportation Authority Board hereby express to Ms. Otterbridge Gardner their most sincere appreciation for her excellence and commitment. And all of these resolutions are signed by the board members and the chair. They are framed and we will send them out to the retirees. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mary. By any chance, are either of them on the meeting today?
I do not believe so. I inquired with Natalie, and as of last night, not at this time.
Okay, great. Well, we certainly want to pass along our appreciation to them, so that's fantastic. With that, any comments from the board before we move on to the next item? Okay, hearing none. Mary, I believe you're back up again. You're still pinch hitting for Jim on the executive director's report?
Excuse me, Chairman, this is Natalie.
Yes, ma'am.
Someone joined the call via telephone, and I was just trying to find out who called in on a phone call.
Sure. Sorry, Natalie.
Good morning. It's Al Carr.
Okay. Welcome,
Good
Delegate.
morning, Delegate Carr.
How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Sorry I didn't come at the exact right time, but whenever is good for you, if you'll still allow me. I just had a quick comment to make.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Delegate Carr, we'll go ahead and let you make your comment now. Just please remember that we're trying to limit our comments to 2 minutes, and we won't answer any questions at this time. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you. And thanks for joining, by the way.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, first of all, good morning to the commissioners. Thank you so much for serving. I know this is probably not the easiest time to be a toll roads authority, but we really appreciate your service. And in the General Assembly, appreciate the team that works with us, Brad, Mary, Jim, and everybody we deal with is always very professional. We appreciate it. So just the one issue I wanted to mention is the issue of toll reciprocity. So I know that the plan right now is to do a procurement with the out-of-state toll debt, which is harder to collect, with an outside firm. But what I'd hope you all would consider is toll reciprocity where it makes sense. I particularly think that Pennsylvania might be a good partner state for us. They are the #2 state for out-of-state toll debt for MDTA. Their penalties are pretty similar to the penalties in Maryland. And from what I can gather, they would sign a reciprocity agreement with Maryland tomorrow if Maryland were willing. I just think this might be a more sustainable and maybe might result in more revenue to MDTA for that particular state than to go with procurement in that instance. Delaware might be another one in the future after Pennsylvania, but just wanted to put that out there for your consideration. And thanks very much.
Thank you, Delegate Carr. Okay. With that, we're now on to the Executive Director's report.
Okay. Thank you. I am back. Thank you very much. Again, yeah. Mary O'Keefe again, on behalf of Jim Ports for the Executive Director's report. So thank you for the privilege of letting me present it today. Couple of quick items. During the March board meeting, We know the board was advised that the governor submitted a supplemental budget to the legislature to provide a one-time bonus to permanent state employees in the amount of $1,000 so that MDTA employees would receive the same benefit afforded to other state employees. The board gave its contingent approval to amend the FY 2021 operating budget to include an additional $1.3 million for employee bonuses. At the direction of the chairman and the board, the MDTA was asked to identify savings to offset the $1.3 million increase. Following the board meeting, the MDTA learned that the state would also be reinstituting COVID-19 response pay for sworn law enforcement officers, estimated at $1.9 million. Consistent with the chairman and the board's wishes regarding the employee bonuses, the MDTA is working to identify budgetary savings in the current year budget to offset the COVID-19 response pay and employee bonuses. The MDTA is currently undergoing another holistic review of the FY 2021 budget, and we will return to the board with a subsequent update on the current year spending and measures taken to help offset the budget increases. Additionally, the agency is working with MDOT's chief financial officer to determine a mechanism to provide the MDTA with some federal funds. Also, as you heard, our go live date is drawing near. We're 4 days away from our official launch. And I got some information from Kelly Mundell that I just wanted to layer on top of what she presented you. Since we launched our transition website, and these numbers are as of last week, we had nearly 22,000 visitors to the site, and most have come to the site directly from the URL. In other words, not from a search or from an ad. And what this indicates to us is that our press releases have done a good job of getting the word out there. There are two significant spikes that correlate to the press releases. The first resulting in over 5,000 unique views in a single day, and the second resulting in over 6,000 unique views in a single day. So we're very excited for Thursday to come for our customers to experience Drive Easy MD and the new customer service features we'll have to offer. So we're excited that the word's getting out there. Also in this past month in April, on April 13th, our Division of Civil Rights and Fair Practices hosted this year's calendar year, Getting Your Foot in the Door. And they've been hosting this event since 2020. And as we are all learning to live in what might become this new normal, as Sean mentioned, our mission is we're going to continue with the mission to increase awareness of socioeconomic programs and keep doing that in a creative way. So the event was recorded and will be available on our website. So anyone who couldn't participate that day will be able to get the same information. So in addition to having our Office of Civil Right and Fair Practices talk about our programs, we had the Division of Procurement there, and we had our Office of Engineering and Construction. And for an added benefit for all of the people who could attend, we also had the participation of the Governor's Office of Small, Minority, and Women Business Affairs and the Federal Highway Administration Maryland Division. So we'll continue that good work. This week starts off what happens every year is the National Work Zone Awareness Week, which is a safety initiative that is held to bring and highlight and emphasize safe driving during work zones. Governor Hogan has joined on this important message. It's a national message declaring April as a Work Zone Safety Awareness Month and April 28th as Go Orange Roadway Worker Appreciation Day. So if you remember, wear a little orange on April 28th. And at MDTA, the safety of everyone on our roads, our work crews, our driving customers is always our top priority. And we focus on it every day. So just a reminder for everybody that's going through a work zone, just slow down, focus, and stay alert. Also this last week, we closed out our Bay Crossing study public hearing comments. We had 2 days with 2 sessions of call-in, and then we also had 2 live testimony sessions that were provided. However, the comment period does remain open until May 10th on the Bay Crossing Study DEIS. And all of that information will be posted on the Bay Crossing Study website as it becomes available. And I wanted to close the remarks as we have been since it's our 50th anniversary with a moment in history, especially as we work to launch our annual summer Bay Bridge travel campaign. Thought it would be appropriate for this installment to highlight the MDTA's William Preston Lane Jr. Bay Bridge. So as we know, for anyone going to Ocean City or even to the Eastern Shore, other locations, the Bay Bridge is the iconic landmark. Its dual spans provide the direct connection between our recreational and ocean regions on the Maryland's Eastern Shore and the metropolitan areas, Baltimore, Annapolis, and DC. At 4 miles, the spans are among the world's longest and most scenic overwater structures. When it opened, the Bay Bridge was the world's largest continuous overwater steel structure. And it was named after former Maryland Governor William Preston Lane Jr., who was instrumental in obtaining approval for and starting the Bay Bridge's construction. Exploring the possibility of a bridge started way before that. In 1927, a group of Baltimore businessmen started to raise funds to build it. Some of those were delayed, stock market crash, other things came. And in the early 1930s, several commissions were selected to organize and plan for the bridge. These efforts required federal aid, and that was not available at the time. So in 1938, the Maryland General Assembly submitted a proposal for a bridge, and legislation for the construction of the bridge was passed. And movement started on the construction of the bridge. It was delayed till after World War II. So construction started in 1947 at that time. So what we have is we have our eastbound bridge, which opened to traffic in June 30th, 1952. And construction of the parallel structure, which is our westbound structure, opened in 1973. And the most recent milestone in our Bay Bridge history, as we commemorate our 50th, is that it went all electronic tolling on May 12th. Permanent all electronic tolling, May 12th, 2020. And so as we begin the summer travel campaign, and our summer travel campaign runs May 10th through September 30th, just want to remind all motorists as they travel over that iconic structure to please drive safely. And thank you for your time today. That concludes the remarks.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions for Mary? Great. Hearing none, it is now, here we go. We've now reached the closed session portion of our agenda. The closed session is scheduled for board members and the designated staff only. Per the Maryland Open Meetings Act, the MDTA board will meet in closed session under the General Provisions Article, sections 3-305B10 and 12, to receive a report on certain pending criminal investigations and an overview and update on deployment of police staff and resources. And General Provisions Article, section 3-305B8, to receive a status on all litigation currently pending against MDTA. With that, do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So
Mario, so
Member
moved.
Cox.
Okay, so Member Cox,
I'll second it then, Mario.
Member Gangemi. Now I'm going to take a roll call so I have Natalie's records complete. Member Gaines?
I vote aye.
Okay, thank you. Member Enzor? I'll circle back. Member Cox?
Member Enzer, you're on mute.
I'm in agreement.
Okay, thank you. Member Cox?
Aye.
Member Von Paris?
Aye.
Member Carroll?
Aye.
All right. Member Gangemi?
Aye.
Member Rosen?
Aye.
Member Ardinger?
Aye.
And the chair votes yes. With that, we have a unanimous vote. For those persons on the line, the board will now be hanging up and transitioning to a separate meeting in a closed session. As soon as we've completed the closed session, we will call back into this open session meeting line to complete the agenda and ratify any actions that may have taken place in the closed session. We appreciate your patience and ask that you please remain on the line if you so desire. Members, we'll now transition over. So with that, I'll give you a minute or two to pop over and we'll see you on the other line. Thank you. Again, the time is now 11:35 and the board has completed its closed session. In order to ensure there's still a quorum of the board present, I'm going to take a quick roll call of the members to see if we have everyone back on the line. Member Carroll?
Here.
Member Cox?
Here.
Member Enzor?
You're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, I see him. Member Ganger, I was here.
Here.
Member Enzer's here. Okay, thank you, Member Enzer. Member Gangemi?
Here.
Member Ardinger?
Here.
Member Rosen? I see Member Rosen. And I see Member Von Paris.
Here.
Okay, great. For the record, there were no actions taken in closed session requiring any ratification. So at this point, our agenda is complete. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Okay, so I'm going to go with Member Gangemi on the motion and Member Cox on the second. I think I got that in some sort of order. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any opposed to adjourning the meeting? Great. So thank you all. This now concludes the meeting of the MDTA board meeting, and it is now 11:36. So thank you all, and see you next month. Thanks again, Natalie and the team, for everything you guys have done.
You're gonna hop on that crane behind you?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to go down and
Good.
go down, grab Member Carroll. We're going to go out.